Welcome to the podcast where together, every Monday, we explore hospitality in its very broadest sense. From culture and cooking, cocktails and coffee, nutrition and farming, politics and animal welfare, organic and sustainability, family and business, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. Come and learn with me, Mark Cribb, about where our food and our drink comes from, and the businesses and, more importantly, the human beings that thrive on where we decide to spend our time and our money. Sign up to our weekly newsletter at humansofhospitality.co.uk and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. Welcome to this week's podcast where we are off to the very lovely Devon, and it was quite a few months ago when the opportunity crossed my desk to interview Tim Hall, who is the executive chef down at Burgh Island in Devon. And it caught my eye because I'd heard of Burgh Island and I'd even driven past it a couple of times, and it's such a unique position as a tidal island just off the south coast of Devon. And since I run a restaurant on the beach myself, which can have some pretty interesting challenges around weather, I was intrigued to understand a bit more around the complexity of running not one, but 3 restaurants on an island that for many hours of the day cannot be accessed at all, or certainly not without its challenges. Add to that Tim's reputation for excellent food and access to some beautiful foraged ingredients, a new owner for the hotel, and a new fish restaurant on the island, and I thought it would make a lovely day out and a place to visit. Alas, lockdown got rid of the visit element, but it was still nice to catch up with Tim and learn all things Tim and Burgh. I encourage you to visit the hotel website or head over to humansofhospitality.co.uk where you will find the links through to their site and social pages, but more importantly, an awesome aerial photo of the hotel that really shows off its very unique position, perhaps before you even listen. And last but not least, could you help me hit 200 reviews, please, on the Apple Podcast app? I say Apple because I know how to do it on that app, and I think things like Spotify hear conflicting information as to whether it's actually possible to leave a review or not. But if you're on Apple, pick up the app. Click on the link that says go to the show via this episode that's now playing, and then scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page where you will see the reviews, and you should see a little link that says either write a review or just tap on the 5 stars. That would make me smile, and I'll appreciate you taking the time. And it's not just that I'm some egotistical maniac seeking stars, but stars means algorithms like the show, which means more people listen, which means I can keep improving the quality of the guests that come on and chat, so everyone is a winner. Okay, thanks so much. Enjoy the conversation. Cheers. Tim Hall, Executive Chef of the Burgh Island Hotel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hugely appreciated. For people listening, Tim, can you just say where in the world are you, please?
Yeah, I'm on a little island just off the coast of Devon in the very south of England. It's a beautiful hotel, very Art Deco, a wonderful place to be.
Yeah, it's a really cool little spot, isn't it? So you're not there all the time because obviously the hotel is shut at the moment, but you're there at the minute because you've got some work going on. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the hotel's closed. The owners took the decision to get some of the work done that needs to be done. So we've got lots of contractors in. So I've just come in off furlough for a couple of weeks just to feed those guys.
Amazing. Okay. How have you been coping with having presumably the most time you've ever had off in your life, I would imagine, isn't it? The last few months?
It's been a bit strange, to be honest. As chefs, we habitually work kind of 60, 70 hours a week. We don't see much of our family. And now it's, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, it's been very, very different.
I won't ask you what your preference is because your family will kill you if you answer. But you've got a young daughter, a bit of homeschooling as well. Is that right? Yes,
yeah. I've got a 10-year-old daughter, going on 16 years. Last year, I think homeschooling was a lot easier. She was a very cute 9-year-old, but all of a sudden she seems to have grown up, developed a bit of sass.
So it's tough.
It's very tough, yeah, and kind of dealing with the teachers as well, because this year it's this lockdown is a bit better set up with like classes on what's the program called, on Teams. So yeah, that's a little. I'm not being a techie myself. It's be a little bit difficult sometimes.
Hey, you've proven yourself as a techie, Tim. I won't go into the problems we've had getting this connection to work, but you've done very well. I'm impressed. So good work. So Burgh Island looks amazing. I'm genuinely gutted. You were booked in, many months ago, and I was super excited because I thought I just wanted basically to go for a ride on a tractor through the ocean and rock up at a hotel. It's a really unique place. For people that don't know it, can you just describe it? Because in essence, you sort of get cut off from the mainland a couple of times a day, don't you?
Of course, yeah. So it's a tidal island. We're probably about 200 or 300 metres from the mainland. So the tide's in twice a day. So the tide comes in, we're cut off completely from the mainland for about 6 hours. Tide goes out. We've got 6 hours of driving back and forth across the beach, and then the tide's back in for another 6 hours. We've got a sea tractor, so a big old machine that can bring us when the tide's not too high, but when you've got kind of high winds or the sea's rough, they're not able to run the sea tractor. And being an old vehicle, it often breaks down, so that can be a problem as well.
Wow. Does it break down when it's like halfway across normally, or is it?
It has done occasionally. I've got a few photographs of when it's gone across and the wheels fallen off, which has been quite interesting. Unfortunately, no one's ever in danger. But yeah, it's just sat watching. It's interesting.
Yeah, amazing. So fundamentally, people and your team, they've got to arrive at certain times of the day, I guess. You pretty much work your how does that work operationally?
It's a logistical nightmare sometimes. I mean, if the weather's good and the sea tractor's running as it should do, it's not too bad because I just rotate my chefs around and the KPs around the sea tractor times. But if there's problems with the sea tractor or it can't run because of the weather, I just have to change people's shifts so they come on later, come in earlier. Like last week, I had to, even though I was only cooking for the maintenance guys, I was coming in at 5:30 in the morning so I could get on before the tide met. So it's you just got to be very adaptable working on Burgh Island.
Yeah, that really adds a level of complexity because it's hard anyway with trying to do rotas and the fact that everybody wants to eat at the same time of the day, and then there's lull periods and all that. So it's always a challenge operationally to get a hotel to run behind the scenes. But I can't imagine adding in the complexity of tides because they don't even run the same time each day, do they? They basically they're very different.
The tides shift by about 40 minutes every day. So it's not easy. You've got to think ahead all the time, even as so far as deliveries and things. If you know you need something on for like a lunch booking or something like that, you got to make sure you've got it on a couple of days ahead because you can't guarantee that it will be brought across to the island when you need it onto the island.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my place down on the beach, which is, again, a very busy venue and the challenges we have, and I cannot imagine if we added that level of complexity. But hey, so it's a pretty big island as well, 26 acres. It's a decent-sized space. Is there anything on it apart from the hotel, or is it just some sort of land that you can go and have a stroll on?
There is a public footpath around one side of the island, which is quite a nice thing to do. Occasionally on an afternoon when the island's quiet, I've walked up to the top of the island. There's an old building, a hewer's hut. So when pilchard was a kind of a popular activity, pilchard fishing, you'd have a hewer living up there calling out to the fishermen in the village to go out and when they saw the shoals. So you can walk up and kind of explore that and have a little look around and then back down. It's probably only about a 15-20 minute walk, but it's nice to do on a quiet day, particularly when it's really windy. It's just a really beautiful site. And of course, with a hotel, we've got a tennis court. There's like a sea pool called the Mermaid Pool, which is basically a cove that's been walled off. So, so it's kind of like swimming in the sea, but a bit safer and a bit colder as well, actually. I went swimming in there in November. It was freezing. I preferred swimming in the sea. And there's a couple of privately owned houses as well. And that's it, really.
Okay, yeah, super healthy actually. That cold water swimming is supposed to be very good for you, I think, isn't it? So I imagine that's quite in vogue. So people who come over, once they're there, there's enough to do basically. Is there a spa as well?
Yes, we have got a spa. So we've got Zorana that does treatments. It's not a spa as such as we've got a jacuzzi and that sort of stuff. There is a sauna. That's it, that's sort of wise. But yeah, Zorana does treatments, so she does massages and beauty treatments as well.
Nice. So a proper place to come and chill and, of course, eat amazing food. So you're the exec chef. How long have you been there, Tim?
I've been here about 13 years now. I did work here before when I was younger. Initially, I came here as the pastry chef back when I was like 20, 21 and spent just over a year here then. And then went back up to Exeter because my partner was living in Exeter and she was getting a bit upset with me being away all the time. So, moved back up to Exeter. And then when the hotel I was working in closed for a refurb, I came back down here and I've been here since. And very much settled down here, bought a house, had a kid.
Nice.
And the Southam very much my life now.
Yeah, sounds great. And 3 restaurants in essence on the island. You've got the Grand Hall, the Nettlefold, and the Pilchard Inn. Are you in charge of all of them? And is it one sort of brigade, or are you a mixed brigade across the 3 different sort of locations? Or?
So we've got two kitchens. So the Grand Ballroom and Nettlefold restaurant are serviced. They're both situated in the hotel. And they're serviced from one kitchen in the hotel. That's kind of where I'm mainly based. I'm a very hands-on exec chef, so I spend most of my time in that kitchen. There's also the Pilchard Inn, which is almost run as a separate entity, which I look after the admin side of it, but we've got a very talented head chef down there called Andy, so he looks after the menus. I look in every now and then. I'll eat the food for kind of menu tastings and things like that, and have a look at the menu, make sure there's nothing too offensive on there. But yeah, generally he's left to his own devices down there, which makes it easier for me because I can focus on the 2 restaurants in the hotel.
Mm. And are they quite a different vibe and quite a different style of food? Presumably they get sort of more grand as you go up, do they, from the inn all the way up to the Grand Hall?
Yes, yeah, very much so. I mean, the Pilchard, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's pub food because it's certainly a lot better than pub food. Andy's got a good background in kind of Michelin star restaurants. So yeah, it's very good quality food down there. Nettlefold restaurant is a predominantly seafood restaurant. And again, very good standards. And then as you go up to the Grand Ballroom, it's a tasting menu restaurant. So that's the only menu that runs in there is the tasting menu. And that's the more kind of fine dining. I mean, ultimately, we'd like to get a star in there at some point. It's not the be all and end all, but it's just something to look at in the future, something to inspire the chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, nice. Must be quite nice having sort of 3 under one roof, because presumably certain dishes, for creativity wise, I suppose you might see something you really like and have an idea, but it naturally fits, one kitchen more than the other. So I imagine as a creative outlet, do you quite like having the sort of the 3 different spaces?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, with the ballroom, because it is a tasting menu, it's all kind of much smaller, intricate dishes, and kind of you're not worrying about having all the elements. If you're sat down having a 3-course meal for your main course, you're expecting your kind of your meat and 2 veg, if you like. But with a taster menu, you can put those. You don't need a starch for your main course. You can have lots of little bits and bobs, lots of purees and things, lots of different types and textures of meat on the plate. Whereas with Nettlefolds, they're more kind of complete dishes. So yeah, you can just play around a bit more because like you said, a dish for one restaurant wouldn't work in another restaurant, but you've just got that creative outlet, and it also means I can get the guys involved with creating dishes. It's a very kind of collaborative kitchen, so I let the guys to come up with things, and sometimes the dishes might suit the tasting menu a little bit better, and sometimes they're a little bit more simple and would suit the Nettlefold restaurant a bit better.
Nice. How many people in your team, in your brigade?
I've got 9.
In the summer.
I've got 9 in the hotel kitchen, and then there's 3 in the pub kitchen, in the Pilchard kitchen.
Okay. Does that stay the same all year round, or does it
It does, yeah, because all the outlets are open all year round. We need the same number of staff the whole time. So when you've got the 2, like in the hotel kitchen, for instance, when you've got the 2 restaurants being served simultaneously, you need that number of chefs in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is there an outside terrace as well? And in the summer, can people, I'm presuming at the Pilchard, they can just sort of turn up, can they, if it's a nice summer's day? I'm guessing there's some sort of level of seasonality to the business.
Yeah, the Pilchard Inn is very much seasonal. There's actually a little cafe underneath the Pilchard as well, which gets serviced from the Pilchard kitchen, and they can be doing like 300 covers a day, all very kind of simple food, fish and chips, burgers and chips, that sort of thing, as well as doing the slightly nicer food up in the pub itself. So yeah, the Pilchard is very, very seasonal. In the hotel, it is seasonal with regards to numbers. Obviously, we're a lot busier during the summer, being where we are on a beach. But the winter's still pretty steady, so we keep both restaurants open. And both restaurants kind of work together, if you like, because not everyone wants to eat a tasting menu. So the ones that don't want to sit down and kind of enjoy the tasting menu might go to Nettlefold so they can kind of pick and choose the dishes that they want to eat.
Yeah, okay. And they're open, you can book, you don't have to be a resident in the hotel in essence.
No, we're open to non-residents. So obviously by prior booking, you couldn't just rock up and come in and eat. But yeah, by prior booking only.
And then how on earth does it work? So, most popular time of the week, it's always 8 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday night. What happens if the tide isn't right to coincide with that? Do you move service around the tide, or?
Um, we can't really do that because obviously most of the guests, so we can do a maximum of 50 covers from the hotel. We might take another, say, 10 or 20 non-residents. So the focus is very much on the hotel guests. So moving service around kind of isn't really feasible. Generally, what happens is we just have to move the guests' booking. So say if you were booked on a Friday and the sea tractor wasn't working for some reason, then we might move it to the Saturday, obviously with in communication with them, making sure that they're happy with the process. But yeah, generally the people that would book as non-residents are aware of the situation.
Yeah, amazing. I guess locals will be used to it, I suppose. So that's cool. So you're really unique space, and I encourage people listening to go and visit the website because there's a great picture on the front. Sort of, I suppose it's a drone shot or something that really sort of sets the scene.
It's drone photography.
Really stunning. Does that mean you've got access to sort of unique food? I read a little bit about you being interested in sort of foraging of coastal herbs and plants. Have you got access to certain produce, I suppose, that you can use that where your local knowledge really comes into play?
Yeah, I take the guys for a little walk around the island sometimes. We've got sea beets growing on the island. We've got sea purslane growing up in the kind of river outlet just across from the island. Whereas we've got rock samphire grows here. We've got various bits and bobs that the garden's planted that you'd have in any sort of kind of kitchen garden: rosemary, bay leaves, that sort of stuff. And the woods nearby as well. This time of year, we've got lots of wild garlic. We're not quite in season yet, but there's a little bit out there. I made a lovely wild garlic and pumpkin Wellington for a vegan Sunday roast a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we've got wild garlic already down here. But yeah, when it's fully in season, I like to take the guys out and pick a few bags of wild garlic and incorporate that into the dishes somehow.
Amazing. That's a pretty nice sort of playground to have access to, I suppose, isn't it? Nice store cupboard. Any particularly sort of, I don't know, unusual or interesting ingredients that you like to use when they're available from the island? Or
Not particularly. Rock samphire is a bit of a weird one. I go through phases with rock samphire. Sometimes I hate it, sometimes I love it. But I saw something last year where someone tempuraed it because it's got quite a bitter flavour, like a bitter carroty sort of flavour. So it doesn't always work with every dish. But yeah, I tempuraed some and it was stunning. It just kind of gives it a completely different flavour and texture. So yeah, rock samphire has kind of become a firm favourite, I think.
Is that only around at certain times?
It is, yeah. So it's not always available.
Okay, that's different to normal sea samphire?
It is, yeah. So the normal samphire that you get, marsh samphire, obviously it's quite soft and tender and salty, and obviously by its title grows in rivers and marshes, although it gets cultivated now as well. But yeah, rock samphire just literally grows in the rocks around the sea. So we've got some growing. Obviously, being an island, it's quite rocky, so you've got plenty growing over here, and then on the mainland as well, we can go picking. And there's even some sea buckthorn, while I think about it, over on the mainland, which you can go and collect and then juice for things.
Nice. I love samphire. It's great.
Samphire is lovely. It's rock samphire is such a completely different flavour to marsh samphire. But yeah, if you treat it right and pick the young samphire, it is lovely.
Amazing. So I know you're into sustainability. If you sort of well, just in general, the hotel in general is pretty good, I think, with its borehole for water and solar panels and Tesla charging points and all sorts of stuff. But sticking with the food side of things, you sell a lot of fish. How do you manage that sort of sustainability angle? Where are you getting your fish from? Is it mainly day boats and local stuff? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I've got several local fish suppliers. I only buy dayboat stuff. I don't think there's any reason to buy anything else really. It's very easy to kind of use sustainable fish. So I've got Britannia, which is it's a family-owned business, a couple of bays over Start Bay, and they have their own boats that they go out for lobsters, scallops, crabs, things like that. They do land the odd bit of fish, but yeah, they're mainly shellfish. So I buy direct from them. So I'm getting brilliant products and better prices than I would do from big fishmongers. And then I've got a couple of bigger fishmongers where I just buy their dayboat fish. So one is buys out of Brixton Market and one buys out of Plymouth Market. So I've got the kind of a pick of two good markets. So I can always get the best fish.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you manage it even when the weather's bad? You still manage to get the dayboat stuff, or do you have to have a backup for when you're looking out on those particularly rough oceans?
I'm always looking ahead anyway, obviously, because with the logistics of this place, you've just always got to stay one step ahead. But because the menus are printed daily, I can just chop and change and use what they've got, really.
Okay. Ever get into conversations with the chefs? I haven't. I need to speak probably directly to a fisherman, but I'm interested in this challenge, I suppose, of bycatch and often the boat's going out to catch something specific and they don't catch it and then they've got to throw it back because they don't have quotas. Are you aware of the sort of, I suppose, what fish is easy to catch and any of the challenges the fishermen have got around there at the moment, or is that out of your zone?
I'd say it's probably a little bit out of my zone. Obviously, I speak daily with the fishmongers, with fish suppliers to see what they've got. I mean, the problem of bycatch is something that everyone's aware of, and whether that will be kind of resolved with us leaving the EU, I don't know. Whether things will get easier for the fishermen. It's something for someone far more intelligent than I to answer that. But yeah, for me personally, I just kind of try and avoid the fish that are a problem, or things like, say, monkfish. If I'm using monkfish, I'll try and use the cheek as well. So like lots of chefs, they'll just use the tails, but quite often what happens is monkfish, they have their heads chopped off at sea, so you're losing the head just so they can land the tail, so they can land more of it. But if you're using more of the fish, then it kind of helps alleviate that problem, makes it a little bit more sustainable.
Mm. Yeah, I need to get a fisherman on. Actually, it reminded me. I might phone Mitch Tonks. He's got his own fisherman now, going out of his rockfish restaurants down in that neck of the woods. I might give him a buzz and see if I can have a chat with this guy, because it's particularly interesting, like you say, off the back of Brexit and the changes that are being made. In general, though, I think it's great. Working with local suppliers off the back of COVID. How are those suppliers coping? What's the backdrop, I suppose, of what's going on? Have they managed to pivot into other markets, or are they desperately banging on the door saying, "Come on, Tim, when are you going to start ordering again?"
A few of them have struggled. I know one of the fishmongers, he clocked that I was back on site, so he's been phoning me regularly trying to get me to buy stuff. But obviously, as I'm just cooking for the maintenance team, I'm not buying expensive fish at the moment, which is unfortunate. So they are struggling. Obviously, there's help out there for the hotels, but not so much the suppliers. Some of them, like dry goods, I use a company called Forest Produce for a lot of my kind of fine goods and dry store sort of goods. But they buy from local cheese suppliers, local charcuterie companies. And yeah, they've told me there's a few cheese suppliers that have gone out of business. I know there's a charcuterie company that's gone out of business just because there's not the demand for it. And Forest themselves have started to doing home delivery to chefs just to try and just to try and make a little bit of money, really. Yeah, it's not a good time for anyone.
No, pretty heartbreaking. Well, we'll come on to coming out the other side of this shortly, but just carrying on that sustainability angle, have you seen a lot of change? You mentioned just now about your vegan pumpkin, I think it was Wellington, that you made. Are you seeing changes in regards to sort of diet, I suppose, particularly the growth in plant-based flexitarian? Have you noticed that in the last couple of years?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I've been doing this job for 20 years now, I guess, and I'd never fed a vegan when I was younger. It just kind of, you might get the odd vegetarian, but most menus just had the token vegetarian dish. It was always a mushroom risotto. Wherever you went, it was just wild mushroom risotto. But for me, I'd be livid if I was a vegetarian or a vegan and that was the only option on the menu. So for me, I always try and have a couple of different options and vegan options as well on the menu, but trying to be a little bit more inventive as well, kind of, rather than making vegan food, just making food that is really, really tasty, that just so happens to be vegan. Like at home the other night for the family, I just did some 5-spice deep fried tofu with like a green veg stir fry sort of thing. And it was really, really tasty, but it just so happened to be vegan as well. So chefs need to think like that, I think, rather than, oh no, it's another bloody vegan coming in the restaurant. What are we going to feed them? What's in the fridge? But actually coming up with exciting dishes that you want to eat as a chef, not necessarily as a vegan.
It's funny that I had five spice tofu for dinner last night. It was beautiful, actually. Yeah, with a Moroccan
It's funny how
couscous.
these things just kind of go around and latch on. Like
Yeah, it was really
chickpea,
good.
chickpea meringues is another one that seems to be quite popular. My sister's a vegan, and on our family WhatsApp group, she was talking about that because she wanted to do a baked Alaska, and she wanted to know whether it would be possible to do it with aquafaba, like the water that you get from tinned chickpeas. But yeah, it does exactly the same thing.
Does it? I've not tried that, and I've
Honestly,
got quite a sweet tooth.
it's really, really good. If you've got a vegan coming for dinner, or even in your restaurants, you can do vegan pavlovas and all sorts. It's brilliant. You just make it in the same way as you'd make your normal French meringue, but instead of using egg white, you use the chickpea water, the aquafaba, and yeah, it works beautifully.
Yeah, you say in the same way that I would just sort of knock up a French meringue, Tim, and if I knew where to start, that'd be great. But luckily, having a restaurant with lots of chefs in it, what I do
You
is
get
say,
one of them
"Chef,
to
any
do it.
chance of a meringue?" Yeah. And it makes you very lazy. I did make my own tofu last night. What's your thoughts on that? I guess I'm interested in our responsibilities as restaurateurs. For, as soon as you dive into the environment sustainability side, inevitably this sort of overuse. Meat with too many meals comes up. Do you think that your job as the restaurateur is simply just to, order what people or make what people order, or do you think we have a responsibility to try and sort of, hold their hand a little bit, I suppose, and try and move them into more plant-based food and think about sustainability when you're actually creating menus?
I don't think it's really on us as chefs to kind of educate and guide the customer. Obviously, the customers, they're coming out for a meal, they want to enjoy themselves. I think we need to make it available, and we need to make things like vegan food as tasty as possible. And certainly, I've changed my approach to vegetarians and vegan cooking. It always used to be a bit of a balls ache. Oh, what am I going to put on as a vegetarian dish now? But I actually enjoy coming up with these dishes now. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily on us. People come out to eat in restaurants because they want to enjoy themselves and have a good time. But with so many people becoming vegetarian and vegan now, you've got to cater to that market, and gradually more and more people will change their eating habits. And I think I mean, everyone's kind of pretty much on board with the fact that we do need to eat less meat than we have been eating. So if you've got other alternatives there that are really tasty, then then that's great.
Yeah, we were definitely guilty of that in my restaurants, of it always being a sort of slightly second thought, but really changed. I get a weekly food box delivered, and I'm loving from a creativity perspective. And I remember chatting to a chef a couple of years ago, said you can really judge a chef by their vegetarian food because you've almost got to be much more creative. But I've learned so much. I had some Sharon fruit, I think it was, delivered yesterday, and I didn't even recognise it. Luckily, my wife knew what it was. So a little Google and how you use it, and it was
Yeah.
beautiful, and it just inspired me. That's funny enough. What one of the ingredients that went in the couscous that went with the tofu, but it was lovely.
Right.
And I'm enjoying the creative journey of just getting random veggies delivered every week and going, right, what the bloody hell am I going to do with this? I made a nice celeriac pate a couple of days ago, white
Yeah,
bean
right.
pate. My chef will be very impressed to hear. That's worth a try. Actually, it was lovely. Celeriac and white bean pate, sort of in sea salt and rosemary, and delicious little starter. Anyway, I'm not going to pretend that I can advise a chef on what food to make. You mentioned a kitchen garden just now as well. So is there you've got a garden on the island in essence? Have you? Is that a
Yeah.
big
It's
affair,
not.
little affair? Or?
Yeah, it's not really a big affair. It's kind of just plotted around the other plants. I think there's various kind of herbs and plants that are there. I have a little chat with a gardener, and she'll ask kind of what sort of things I want planted. But generally, it's the kind of the herbs and things, flowers, because I like using a few flowers like borage and things like that. Like she'll plant chives. There's various different types of thyme that she's planted for me. She did plant some globe artichokes, but we have a massive problem with rabbits on the islands because there's being an island, there's no natural predators of the rabbits. So well, there used to be a fox years ago, but that one died, and so they're just spreading like rabbits do. So yeah, they just anything she plants, she eats. So yeah, the globe artichokes didn't last long, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
no,
that's a shame.
we've got a few bits that we can use.
Okay. Do you get to use the rabbit?
No, it's something that I'd really like to do. I think with so much red tape around, obviously you've got to have it's. I say traceable, but obviously it's as traceable as it can
It's
be
outside
because
the
it's
window.
from your
Yeah.
doorstep. But yeah, maybe it's something I need to look into. What I need to what certification I need to get to say that it's safe to feed to the customers. I have had rabbit on the menu before, and it didn't get on the tasting menu, and it didn't go down particularly well. It's one of those meats where people are a little bit scared, I think, of eating it because they think of rabbit and it being a pet. But obviously, rabbit is one of those truly sustainable meats. There's so much rabbit out there, particularly if you're buying wild shot rabbit. It's a no-brainer eating rabbit. Really, it's so tasty, and there's so much you can do with it. Like, we had a lovely dish on. So I rolled the rabbit loin with the offal, wrapped it in prosciutto, cooked it sous vide, and then pan-fried it afterwards. The legs we confit down, so we made a rabbit rillette with it, and just served it with some carrot puree, some heritage carrots as well, a little anise jus from the rabbit bones, and then some coriander oil. And it's beautiful, but yeah, it was just a bit kind of, I think it just scared a few of the diners on the tasting menu, just the thought of eating rabbit, which is a shame because it is, like I said, it's one of those meats we need to eat. It's a truly sustainable meat, rabbit.
Yeah, I reckon if you call it Tim's Burgh Island rabbit and buy yourself your own gun, Tim, then you might be all right. That's something to sort of alleviate the boredom when you're sat there only serving.
Well, one of the maintenance guys has got an air rifle, incidentally, and he does take out a few of the rabbits.
Doing this afternoon, yeah.
Well, I've got to wait till about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock to get off the island because the tide's in until then. So yeah, maybe I'll borrow the rifle.
It's all fitting together, Tim. You've got all that time sat there looking at the tractor broken down, waiting to get off the island. You've got a rifle and loads of rabbits and a restaurant.
This is a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah,
a marriage made in Devon. The cheesiness.
Very good, very good. And then so you're quite collaborative, are you? From a sort of brigade perspective, you get the team involved in the menu design and get their dishes.
Yeah, very much so. It can be a lonely old fare being an exec chef sometimes, just kind of coming up with new dishes. So yeah, I get the guys involved. One of my head chefs, Jordan, he's a young lad, but he trained up in London, so he's in Michelin star places, so he's very knowledgeable. So yeah, he comes up with lots of good ideas, and some of the younger guys will come up with ideas for canapes, and Chantel on pastry will come up with ideas for desserts. So yeah, I just like to get them involved. It gives them a little bit of ownership as well, so they're kind of it's not just a job then, they've got a bit of pride in what they're doing because they're seeing their food go out, not just, I'm just cooking Tim's food again. So yeah, I like it to be a kind of a very family sort of kitchen, so we're all working together rather than they're working for me, if you like.
Yeah, and have some of them stuck around because of that? Have you got some that have been with you for a while?
I mean, I had 2 new guys start, when was it, just after the first lockdown, but apart from that, all of them have worked for me for several years, some of them 3 or 4 years. But yeah, it's quite a close-knit team. And nice. even two that left after last summer. We had a very, very busy, very hard summer last year. And 2 of them that have worked for me for a couple of years, they went off to another hotel, did 3 days there, realised the grass wasn't green, and they've come back and they'll be here for a long old time now.
Amazing. Sometimes you need them to do that, don't you? Just go and double check somewhere else and then go, actually, he's all right. He's all right, that's him.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think people appreciate, once they see that how different other kitchens are, they appreciate where they're working a little bit more.
As a matter of interest, it just popped into my head. Can you swim back to the land if it's high tide?
I wouldn't advise it. I've done it once before, and it wasn't the best experience.
Have you been drinking?
But yeah, if it's still water, then you probably could. But if there's any sort of waves, it's not advisable at all.
All right, very good. You covered the health and safety. The hotel would have had a heart attack if you said, it's cool, just swim across. They'd have been
do not do it under any circumstances. But generally, if it's calm and nice, then the sea track will be running unless it's broken.
Okay. You've got yourself out of it there. I'm going to buy Lilo and paddle over.
I've waded across several times. I mean, like probably half an hour before the tide actually parts, it's probably wadable. In the summer, if the sea track has not been running and there's a few of us going off at the same time, we'll wade off together up to that knee sort of depth. Wow.
You just leg it and hope for the best.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I still haven't bought myself a dry suit. Every year I think, I'm going to buy myself a dry suit this year. And I never get around to it.
It's a good idea. Well, if you're as busy this year as you were last year, and we get a bit of a longer season, we'll come back to that in a minute. So, I just want to touch on the hotel itself a little bit. Then, so I don't know, built back in the 1930s, I think, wasn't it? Archie Nettleford, that's where the name of the restaurant comes from, isn't it? Mainly built it for his mates from London. Who's your typical kind of guest now? What sort of person tends to come? Is it the Londoners coming down, or is it used by the locals? Or?
Yeah, it's very much the Londoners, obviously, because they're kind of the price point that we are. It's the kind of the more wealthier clientele, and also the people that were a bucket list experience that they want to get under their belt. Lots of people save up over a couple of years and then come here, spend a couple of nights, and then we've got a lot of regulars that will come here and stay kind of 3, 4, 5 nights. But yeah, obviously, because it is quite an expensive place to stay, it's generally the more wealthy clientele out of London, Yorkshire, places like that.
Okay, nice. And then getting a lot of work done at the moment. Giles bought the place a couple of years ago, I think, doesn't he? Has there been a lot of changes since Giles bought it?
Oh, very much so. I got a brand new kitchen fitted.
Oh wow, nice. That's a way of winning over the brigade, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, he was brilliant. It was a bit old and tired. So yeah, they spent a fair bit of money doing up the kitchen, new extraction system and stuff. Nettlefold restaurant is a new thing under Giles's kind of guidance, under his ownership. Prior to that, it was just used as like the breakfast room and for Sunday lunch as well. So yeah, now it's its own restaurant. So it just kind of broadens the appeal of the place.
I can imagine that conversation where he said, "All right, Tim, you can have a new kitchen, but we're setting up a new restaurant." Was it a sort of a bit of a bartering exercise, or? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, my main concern was because most of the diners in the restaurants are hotel guests. My concern was, wouldn't we just end up splitting the guests that we've got rather than kind of getting more in? So rather than doing 50 in one restaurant, you'd do 25 in each. So you're kind of doubling up the workload, but not necessarily the revenue.
Yeah. And what was the reality?
It was pretty much that, to be fair. But we have picked up more guests from it, but I don't think as many as was hoped from it. But it's just given more appeal. So now people can stay a couple of nights rather than just having the one restaurant to dine in. Now there's the 2 or 3 restaurants with the pilchard being open properly now. So rather than people staying like one night, they might stay 2 or 3 nights. So it has that's the positive effect it's had.
Yeah, I can see that. I can imagine as a customer, because the grand what's it called? The grand ballroom.
The grand ballroom.
Yeah, it is literally that, isn't it? I think sort of black tie tasting. You imagine
it's a black tie dinner, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. I mean, me personally, I'd love to eat the food up there, but I'm not a black tie kind of person. I wouldn't want to sit in a restaurant. I'd just feel uncomfortable sitting there eating in my penguin suit. So for me, I'd be more comfortable dining in Nettlefold, and certainly when I've come in for dinner, I've eaten in the Nettlefold restaurant just because I feel a little bit more comfortable in there, because it is a little less formal.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think I'd do the same. And like you say, if you're coming for a couple of nights, it's, like you say, as a bucket list thing, maybe a black tie and a tasting menu's great, but you wouldn't want to do it 2 nights in a row, would you? So he probably speaks some sense. New kitchen, did that make a big difference to your life?
It did, yeah. It just kind of it changed the flow of the kitchen a little bit because it was a bit disjointed. It's a weird shaped kitchen because you kind of imagine a square with a semicircle kind of stuck on the end. So the square was where the sauce section was and where pot wash was, and then the semicircle was split into 2. One side was pastry, one side was larder, or the starters come from. So the waiting staff had to walk around the outside of the kitchen through pot wash, through the sauce section to get to the pastry section. And from a safety point of view, it was just an absolute nightmare because you got chefs with hot pans stepping back into waiting staff that are walking by with beautiful desserts. So that was never ideal. So now we've got one big long pass. So the waiting staff don't actually need to come into the kitchen anymore. And yeah, I can see what's going on then across the whole pass, whereas before I couldn't see what was going on back in pastry. So if people are not doing the things they're supposed to be doing, I can clock it now, whereas before I couldn't.
Yeah,
Not that
amazing.
anyone misbehaves in the kitchen,
Yeah,
I'm
never.
sure.
Yeah, no, they're always run like clockwork. But yeah, amazing what difference just those little sort of things can make. As a matter of interest as well, so working with the bar, I know you follow the seasons and local produce and all that kind of stuff. Gary, is he still there? He was the
No,
26
no,
years or something as barman, or was he gone?
yeah, 26, 27 years, I think it was he was here. He actually retired in September, I think it was. So it's a sad day. He popped in yesterday to say hello. He'd been up in Scotland visiting his mother. But yeah, he was very much character, very much part of Burgh Island. He was
Yeah, amazing. Okay.
yeah.
Well, I was thinking with him, but even without him, do you get involved much with the drinks? Do you try and complement? I'm thinking sort of cocktails or making certain kind of concentrates or stuff like that, or food that goes with the bar. Do you
Not
work much with the bar?
massively so. Every now and then they'll come to me with a cocktail and they'll ask my advice and kind of I'll taste it and tell them what I think they should put with it. We've just taken on a new food and beverage manager who he just started just before Christmas, so I've not had an awful lot of dealings with him yet, but he's very keen on that side of things. So yeah, it will be something we'll be working a little bit more collaboratively with the drinks, which should be quite cool. Making caviars and things like that, I guess, for his cocktails and doing little dried fruit garnishes for him, which would be quite
Yeah.
exciting. I think he's
Yeah. Yeah, we
yeah,
try and get our bar team to work with the chefs as well. And it's quite interesting. It's certainly interesting, like you say, when you're tasting cocktails and getting a chef's palate on a cocktail. It's always interesting to get their perspective. They often come up with some great little nuggets when the chefs are off doing competitions and stuff like that. Yeah. So your background then, Tim, just interested in what got you into cooking. Really, I know you started at a pretty young age with your family, but you ended up going off and working at a restaurant in Brittany. What was it about that time in France and that restaurant that really sort of made you cemented that decision and made you think, you know what, yeah, this is the career for me?
it was just the food that was over there. It was a Michelin star restaurant I was in, and the quality of the produce that was coming in was amazing. I mean, sea bass. I'd only seen small sea bass in this country before, in the pub that I was working in and at college, but they were using sea bass the size of bloody salmon. It was just incredible. The berries they had were so beautiful and fresh and plump, and just the passion of all the chefs that are in that kitchen it was just infectious almost. The kind of the passion that those guys had, that just spending a whole summer out there. I mean, the camaraderie was brilliant as well. It was a really good group of chefs. It was me and one other English lad that went out there. Neither of us spoke a word of French, but we were very much kind of included and kind of brought into the team, if you like. And their passions impressed upon us. But yeah, just the food, everything about being out there. It was the most amazing summer of my life. I'd love to go back and repeat that summer. Just knowing what I know now as well would be awesome.
Yeah. And was it literally from that point onwards where you went, right, this is the career for me? Because it's quite a tough industry, it's tough hours. Yours are even more tough because you've got the tidal problem. But it's a lot of work and weekends. Was there any points where you thought, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore? Have you loved it pretty much from that point?
I think even before then, it was a career that I knew I wanted to do. From a young age, I wanted to be a chef, even when I was at high school because I did food technology as one of my GCSEs. It was, I knew I wanted to be a chef. But over the years, I mean, there's been times where I've wanted to get out of it. A few years ago, actually, probably it wasn't even as long ago as that. It was probably about 2 years ago. I was kind of faltering a little bit. I even did a HGV course because I decided I wanted to get out of catering and be a lorry driver. And I thought, well, if I do want to become a chef again, I could buy myself a big wagon and do like mobile caterings, like fine dining from a lorry sort of thing. But yeah, sometimes you just get fed up with the industry in a whole. Like for me, there's so many allergens and the paperwork. Cooking's almost, sometimes you feel like the fun's been taken out of it. Like when I was a young chef, literally you just cooked and that was it. Maybe as a young chef, I didn't see all the paperwork and the admin side of it. But yeah, when you're an exec chef, the admin, the paperwork, the daily battles with allergens. Like when I was younger, you might get maybe one allergy a week, if that. But now we probably do about 7 or 8 different allergens each night, and you just kind of it just becomes very pressured and very hard work sometimes. So yeah, I think I just kind of got sick of that and not spending time with the family. Obviously, having a missus and a kid at home as well, you want to spend time with the family. But when you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you're missing birthdays and things like that, and never kind of being at home on Christmas Day, yeah, it just got on top of me. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to try something different. Lorry driving was always something that had appealed to me. So I went for it, and fortunately I failed, and kind of it was almost like fate then. And then lockdown happened, and it kind of watching lots of cookery on TV, and I was encouraged to write a cookery book as well, and it actually kind of rekindled my love and passion for cooking. And now I'm chomping at the bit again. And even the guys that I'm working with that have worked with me for a long time have kind of very much seen the change in me. Because yeah, I'm just really hungry for it again now. I kind of want to experiment different things, and yeah, every day's a school day again, which is brilliant. But yeah, it does get on top of you. And I don't think there's a chef out there who hasn't had like a period of their career where they've thought, do you know what, I really don't want to do this anymore. But you just kind of, yeah, you come out of it, and you, like anything, you kind of get tired of things sometimes, but you get through it and get back on the horse and go for it again.
Yeah, I don't think it's just chefs. I don't think there's a human out there, Tim, who hasn't at some point thought, my goodness, is this the right thing for me? But yeah, hospitality can be particularly challenging. But then the flip side, as you sort of said then, it can be such a buzz, and the camaraderie with your team and all that sort of stuff can be great and lovely that you've managed to have a little bit of a rest, much as the negativity. Are you expecting then, so we're hopefully going to reopen. I'll ask you for your punt, I suppose, as to what you're working towards at the moment from a reopening date. And then are you expecting a sort of a very busy post-pandemic bounce? You're in the right area down there on the coast in the sort of the tourism mecca of Devon.
I think we're aiming. They're certainly wanting me back on about the 8th of March, and I think we're reopening on about the 14th or 18th we're looking at. But obviously, until we get a firm date from Boris, our saviour, we're really kind of working blind. So we've got things in place, rotors ready. So when we're given the go ahead from government to say, right, that's when hospitality can reopen, we're chomping at the bit, ready to go. So I can get the guys back in the kitchen, cook up. So these 2 weeks where I've been here cooking for the contractors, I've been coming up with some new dishes, new menus, so we can go through those the week before we reopen and do that. But yeah, certainly if this summer is anything like last summer, it's going to be really, really busy, really strong. Last summer was the busiest summer we've ever had on Burgh Island. Obviously, I've been here a long old time, and I've never experienced it that busy. But people weren't going abroad, so the money that they were spending on, like they might spend a couple of thousand going on holiday to Turkey or Spain or somewhere like that, they were coming here and spending the same money on a few nights on Burgh Island. So yeah, it was brilliant for us last year. And it'll be much the same this year, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case, isn't it? Looking at the news at the moment about having the quarantine in hotels and, pretty much being told, don't go abroad, aren't you? Then hopefully we will get a decent year for domestic tourism, which will be exciting. So, well, look, it's really good. It's such a cool place. Love the look of it. I will get down to meet you in person one day, Tim, and hopefully have a beer and a rabbit overlooking the bay. But yeah, thanks for taking the time. Where should people go if they want to follow you? Are you sort of on social media in some?
Yeah, I do Instagram. Obviously, we've got the hotel Instagram as well. I've got my own personal one, so I kind of put photos of the food and more family life as well. I'm a keen mountain biker, so I get mountain biking and cycling with the family. So I'm walking as well with the family as well. So there's shots of the food and cooking with the family at home on my Instagram, which is Tim Burgh Hall, I think it is, or Tim_Burgh_Hall, I think is my Insta. I don't really do an awful lot of other social media, not being a techie myself. I need to get back into it, really. I know the PR people have been on at me to get on with some of the social media stuff. It's always been something I've shied away.
Well, they should leave you alone for a little while now, Tim, because you've done a podcast. So that's got to buy you some time.
Well, I've got another thing tomorrow for a magazine. So yeah, I think while it's quiet and while I've got no kitchen duties, they're trying to get as much in as possible.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, I will put links up to the hotel website and the hotel social pages as well on the show notes that will go out with this episode. But for now, Tim, look, thanks so much for sparing my time. Really interesting to get to chat and hear of the unique challenges you've got down there. But I wish you the very best of luck with the summer.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to chat.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, you made it to the end, and I really hope you enjoyed learning all about Burgh Island and what Tim is up to in that unique part of the world. I, for one, will definitely be going to visit next time I'm heading down to the southwest. And don't forget that you can head over to humansofhospitality.co.uk to find the notes that go with this show and the various links to the social media and the websites. But whilst you are there, why not sign up for the weekly newsletter? No spam, just an email once a week on a Monday lunchtime with information and links to that week's show and guests and any useful information that we chat about. Okay, I'll be back next Monday with a brand new episode all the way from the Real Food Cafe in Scotland. For now, have a great week. Cheers.